All right, what's going on, everyone? I am incredibly excited for today's video because I'm going to break down exactly how to profitably spend 5K a day on Facebook ads for a low ticket funnel. So, if you are the founder of a high ticket info or coaching business, maybe you're still running your own ads, doing your own media buying, or if you have an in house media buyer, you and them are going to find this incredibly helpful. Again, this is going to be a full media buying breakdown. We're going to dive into ad accounts. We're going to get our hands dirty. I'm really excited, so let's go. If you are new here on the YouTube channel, welcome. My name is Sebastian Robeck. I have been around the block in the internet marketing, digital advertising game for the last 8 years or so. I exited my own seven-figure coaching business back in 2021, and then went on to work as the CMO for multiple eight-figure info brands like Cole Gordon and Closers.io, Traffic and Funnels, and a bunch of others. And at this point, I've built and ran multiple eight-figure marketing teams, and I probably personally managed close to 50, maybe even upwards of $70 million in ad spend for high ticket info brands across Facebook and YouTube. Now, before we dive in, a little bit of a typo here. I said 2 other videos. I meant to say 3. There's a few other videos on the channel that you will very likely find helpful if you watch them after you watch this video and you just kind of pair them up, which is number 1, how to determine your ad budgets for a given month. So that, again, I'm going to leave the links to these videos in the description here. Just the full breakdown of how we like to run our low ticket funnels for maximum success and profitability. And lastly, how to run a really high octane creative testing machine when you're scaling your ads for both a low ticket funnel or VSO, whatever it is you're doing. So again, I would highly recommend you check out those videos after you watch this one. Now, let's dive right into the media buying structures and the golden rules specifically of sustaining high daily budgets for a low ticket funnel when it comes to media buying. So number 1, obviously, you got to know your numbers. And I'm diving into these because these golden rules are really the foundation before we start diving into ad accounts and launching ads and all that stuff. You really need to know your numbers. And when it comes to a low ticket funnel specifically, you really need to know your core metrics like your sales page conversion rate, what your target CPA is for your initial front end offer. And also you need to know your AOV, right? Because when it comes to a low ticket funnel, the kind of great balance that we're trying to strike here is how do we essentially acquire customers at as close to break even as possible with all of the other products inside the funnel, so that our marketing spend is as profitable and efficient as it can possibly be, and we're liquidating as much of the spend on the front end while also still simultaneously sending as many people to booking a call with the sales team on the back of those front end purchases. So again, you really need to know your numbers and understand what you're aiming for when you're launching your ads, and also when you're scaling your ads especially. You need to have airtight tracking, right? So you need to make sure all your conversion events are firing correctly. I'm not going to go through that in this video. I may do that in another video, but if you're already spending some amount of money on traffic, you probably have that sorted to some degree. If you don't, before you start scaling your ads, blowing your budgets up to multiple thousands of dollars a day, 5, 10K a day, you need to make sure your tracking is airtight. So if you don't already have offline conversion set up and server-side tracking, in addition to just your browser, normal browser events from Facebook or Hyros, I would highly recommend you start to set up server-side tracking. Make sure all that stuff is airtight so you're feeding the highest quality data back to the pixel. That's going to have an incredibly huge impact on your ability to scale your traffic and continue to reach your ideal customers with your funnel. Next up, generally speaking, rule of thumb here, especially with Facebook, you got to be doing heavy creative testing. If you're testing 1 or 2 ads a week and you want to spend multiple thousands of dollars a day, it's just not going to work. There's no emotion to it, right? It's very simple. Facebook is just becoming a creative testing, sucking up machine, right? And you need to feed it as much as you possibly can. And again, I go into how to do that and how to actually execute that in another video, but just know you need to be testing a significant amount of creatives every single week if you want to start to scale your budgets. This is a bit of a counterintuitive one here, and you may have heard this before, but if you want to sustain high daily budgets on the ad side, you need to have really strong organic content. And the reason for that is because as you start to spend more on ads, you bring more eyeballs onto your stuff, onto your business, onto your ecosystem. If you don't have organic content to support the paid traffic that you're spending so much money on, what's going to happen is people are going to see your ads, they're going to click over to your YouTube channel, and if they're not really sold on you as a founder, as the brand, they're actually not going to convert and purchase whatever it is you were trying to get them to convert on. Now, on the flip side, if you have really good organic content, your ads will 100% perform better, which will in turn allow you to continue to spend more on traffic. I have seen a direct correlation with our clients where the more that we spend on ads and the better that our organic presence is, the more energy, time, resources that we put into that side of things, the better our ads perform. And so the more efficient our marketing is as a whole. And lastly, this is sort of tied into organic content, but you want to make sure you're growing your branding audiences, right? So that what I mean by that is actually, I'll pause on that because I'll actually get into that when I go over the ad account structure. So again, those are the golden rules. Now let's get into the actual scales to 5K a day smoothly. Now, this is also going to work incredibly well if you're going from $500 a day to $1,000 a day, or if you're trying to scale up to 2,000 or 3,000 a day. 5K a day, this also works at 10K a day. 5K is just a nice number. It sounds good, but this really works at almost any scale level. And this is just what I found to work the best. I really started out in media buying. I'm kind of a media buyer at heart. I just love it. Even still to this day, I'm very active inside, a handful of our accounts. And for me personally, I like to keep the ad account structure as simple and clean as possible, because as you start to scale your spend, it really becomes a game of creative testing and less about how do we have as many campaigns as possible, because the more messy your ad account is, the more stressful it's going to be, and the less, in my opinion, less efficient you'll probably be at being able to perform and sustain scalability when you spend more. So with that said, there's 3 campaigns I like to have in an ad account, especially when we're scaling, but also just in general. Number one, you have a testing campaign. So this is your designated campaign where you're testing new creatives, right? So the way I like to structure this campaign, and by the way, I'll show you guys here in a second, like how to actually execute this inside the ad account. But I like to keep this campaign as an ABO campaign, so your ad set budget optimization style. So you've got a bunch of individual ad sets inside this one campaign. So, depending on how many creatives you're testing, you could have 20, 30, 40 ad sets in here, right? Depending again on how much you're testing, what you're spending. I typically like to have between 1 and 2 ads per new ad set, sometimes 3, again, if I'm maybe testing at a higher budget. What I'm always doing with our testing campaign and our scaling campaign is I'm always optimizing for the actual sales conversion event that we're trying to get more purchases for on the low ticket funnel. So I'm not optimizing for leads or opt-ins or anything that essentially isn't an actual low ticket purchase, because I want Facebook to optimize and become smarter and smarter around getting me more customers on a low ticket funnel, not just more eyeballs or clicks or leads or whatever it is. I want buyers. So you need to make sure you're optimizing for the actual purchase event. On these ad sets in this testing campaign, I typically start at a low budget, somewhere between $100 to $200 a day. Again, depending on what you're spending, your testing budget can be higher or lower. It might be $50 a day. It might be $300, $400 a day. That's often the case for us for several of our accounts. Again, just relative to where you're at. But your testing budgets are almost always going to be lower than whatever your budget is on your scale campaign. And each new ad set that we'd launch inside this testing campaign is usually just a duplicated out ad set from one of our current performing ones or current ones that we have inside that campaign. And usually 9 times out of 10, we're just swapping out new creatives into the ad set for the ones that are already in there. Sometimes we are testing new audiences as well, and I'll get into that when I talk about targeting here in a minute. But I'd say probably 8 to 9 times out of 10, we're duping out an ad set and launching new creatives into that one to test those new ads. So again, you've got your testing campaign over here, and that's where we're always testing new ads, essentially all the time, right? So on a week by week basis, we're always testing new ads. And again, I have the separate video on how to do that and what specific kinds of ads and creatives are working well, but just know that that's the purpose of your testing campaign. Then we have a scaling campaign. Now, there's a bunch of different philosophies out there on media buying, and honestly, there's really no right answer. All I'm sharing with you here on the channel is what I'm finding to work the best for us and what I've found to work the best over a long extended period of time. I've been in the game a while now, and I've personally and our team has ran incredibly high spend accounts over a long period of time and sustain that scalability. And we've done a lot of testing. We've done CBO with one ad set, CBO with multiple ad sets, this kind of scaling method, this kind of scaling method. And this is just what we have found to work the best. So when it comes to scaling, you have one campaign, and it's not a CBO. It's going to be an ABO campaign, similar to the testing campaign, except it's only going to have one ad set in there, okay? And this is, again, specifically for a low-ticket funnel. Some people call this kind of like an Advantage Plus shopping campaign. It's still essentially just a sales optimized focused campaign. Really, it's nothing super fancy or out of this world here. In that one ad set, typically what we find to work the best is broad targeting, so not going too narrow with our actual interest or lookalikes or whatever. Again, still optimizing for sales, of course. And then really all we're doing inside that scale campaign is we're keeping that one ad set as is, and we're just pushing and ascending new creatives by grabbing the post IDs from the winning creatives inside the testing campaign here. It's a really intuitive process. It's really not it's not overcomplicate or overly complicated, to be honest. The name of the game is really just testing enough creatives to find winners, and then spending enough on them here in the testing campaign and then sending them into the scale campaign over here. And then the third campaign we have is a branding campaign. This is working very, very well for us at the moment. So the way this works is, again, similar to the testing campaign above the very first campaign we launched. It's an ABO campaign, so you've got multiple ad sets. Inside this campaign, the purpose of this campaign is actually to run organic content and video-based content to completely cold audiences to start to build a warm video views, engaged audience of people who are consuming our content that we can then retarget to and build audiences from at a later date, depending on how much you're spending. That could be in a couple days, it could be in a week, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And again, in this campaign, it's ABO. We have multiple ad sets. Again, it's designed to build a video views audience. So literally all we're doing is we're taking some of our short, mid, and long form pieces of content from Instagram and YouTube. We're actually finding our YouTube long form to work really well at the moment. We have 10 to 15 minute long videos running to cold traffic, and we're tracking how many people are watching 50 to 75% of those videos, because those people are going to be much more engaged than if you're optimizing or focusing on people that are watching 30 seconds of a 5-minute long video, right? You really want to get the people that are sticking and actively engaging for a longer period of time. And that's working really well, especially when we retarget to those people. So again, all you're doing is you're running different pieces of content. Typically, we like to do $5 to $10 a day per content piece. We keep the targeting broad. You can play around with the targeting a little bit more on this, because you don't necessarily, like, you can go with a smaller audience, say 500,000 to 1 million if you wanted to try it, because you're just going for video views. You're not trying to actually scale conversions. And then what we do is we don't have any CTA or links in the ads. So we're not running direct response ads in this branding campaign. We're purely just spreading our organic content to more eyeballs. So we're creating this sort of constantly growing audience that we can then, again, retarget to, sell to, and just continue to nurture as time goes on. And this is really helping to just... This branding campaign and focusing on branding right now for an info business is just so important. It has so many ripple effects, right? If you're watching this, you probably heard this before. It's true. It also, I'm definitely finding a direct correlation between overall ROAS and marketing efficiency being higher the more branding that we do, and the more effort that we put into that. So again, do not skimp out and don't just focus on direct response. Obviously, you got to have it. You got to have people converting every single day, but you also need to be building this audience right here. So don't skip out on that. It's very, very important. So let's talk about targeting and placements, and then I'm going to actually dive into the ad account here and show you guys how to launch, scale, and optimize your ads. Excuse me. When it comes to targeting, again, really, really simple. We're finding open targeting, aka broad, meaning no interests, no lookalikes, nothing, just no custom audiences, just pure demographic, like maybe some age range targeting and location, and that's it. We're finding that to work the best right now, especially at scale. What we're seeing typically is, what usually happens is we see these interest stacks that we'll test, and they'll work really well for a few days or a week, and then they kind of tend to fizzle out. They just don't scale as well as open targeting does. That's working the best. Now, again, with that said, occasionally we are finding some interest stacks to work well. So that's why we don't neglect testing these, entirely. So let's say you're in some sort of a business based offer, right? You can test things like, an investing stack or an entrepreneur stack or a software stack, people are interested in, right? So you can test these different things. They are still working. It's just, in our experience, they're not working as well as pure just open targeting, right? Facebook's algorithm is getting a lot smarter, and we're just leaning more into that, and it's working. Lastly, we do still test lookalikes. So we'll test between a 1 or 3 or 5% lookalike of some of our, highest sort of conversion-based audiences. So let's say we'll test a lookalike, 1% lookalike of our all-time low-ticket buyers, or of our all-time high-ticket client list, or all these sort of different micro-audience segments. Again, we'll test lookalikes of people who have watched, say, 75 or even 95% of our videos, depending on how big the audience is. And again, similar to interest, these are still working. They're just becoming more and more hit or miss. Again, it's really, we've done a lot of testing on this, and this is just sort of how it's progressing at the moment with Facebook's algorithm. Again, open targeting is just tending to work better than interests and lookalikes, especially when it comes to scaling. Now, when it comes to placements, similar to targeting, we're finding automatic placements to work the best, right? So just kind of letting Facebook do its thing. And when we actually look at the spend breakdown on most of our scaling ad sets and campaigns, they end up pushing most of the spend to the placements we would want the spend to go to anyways, like the feeds and the stories on both Facebook and Instagram. So trying to sort of finagle and control the placements sometimes works, which is again why, similar to interest and lookalikes, we do still test it. So we might do an ad set where it's only feeds on Facebook or Instagram, or only stories and reels if it's a vertical style ad. We might do, again, Instagram specific placements. Maybe we're doing a carousel, whatever. So we do still test it, and it still works from time to time. But when it comes to consistently getting results at scale, automatic placements and open targeting they're just doing better than everything else that we're finding. So with that said, let me walk you guys through quickly here inside of just sort of a dummy blank ad account, how we like to launch our ads inside a testing campaign, what it looks like to move them into scaling. And then I'm going to talk lastly about optimizing here. So again, none of this is going to be revolutionary, but I'm just going to walk you through the process here. It's very, very simple. So, I've got this sort of dummy sales campaign here, right? We're just going to call it ABO testing. I like to keep my naming conventions very, very simple. I don't like to overcomplicate it. I don't like to have this messy looking sort of mishmash of words and numbers and underscores and all this crap. It's just annoying for me personally. So again, when we're launching our testing campaign, you got ABO testing, right? You're going to make sure you select ad set budget. Make sure you uncheck this. It's something you're probably already know about Facebook, which is that they're always going to try and get you to do shit you don't actually want to do. So make sure you do a full sweep before you launch anything and uncheck all the random crap they try to get you to do. Ad set budget, leave A/B testing off. Don't mess with that. For this, you'll definitely want to have, again, this is just a dummy ad account, but for all of our clients, we definitely have like an engaged audience CSV file and an existing customer CSV file, and it's super simple to upload those. You do want to make sure you have those in there. Special ad categories, for we almost never need to use this. Boom. So again, you can probably just leave this blank. Then you click next. Now, when it comes to naming conventions, for me personally, I typically just like to have, the funnel name, right? So whatever the low ticket funnel name is. And then I might do like location. So let's say it's USA. And then I'll just do open targeting. Right. And then if, for example, if I know whatever the general angle of the creative is, I'll do, let's just say, angle 1. Right. And then the actual ads will be, say, whatever specific variations of that general angle are. Angle 1, and then, I might do the age range over here. So let's just say 25 to 55 plus or whatever, or 25 to 55. Boom. So you have your simple naming convention right there. And then you can also put in whatever conversion event is that you're optimizing for. But again, 99% of the time, it's just going to be purchases. So you come in here, and then you're always going to select, I always select website. Okay. So make sure you select website. Don't get confused by all this other stuff. And then you always want to do maximize number of conversions, right? In my experience, this works the best. You can play around with this if you'd like, and definitely don't play around with these, but this is just what I find to work the best. It's just get me the most amount of conversions, okay? And then obviously here is where you'd select your pixel, right? Your pixel and your specific conversion events. This is a dummy account, so we don't have anything set up here, but this is where you'd select that. Make sure you select the right pixel, of course, and the right conversion event. Anything with cost per result goal, it's a whole kind of separate thing. You don't want to mess with any value rules. You can leave that out. Standard attribution model is, you just want to have it as standard. You don't want to mess with that as well. And then your daily budget, you're just going to come in here and you're going to go, let's say 50, or whatever your daily budget is that you're feel good and able to allocate towards testing. Boom. When it comes to timing, generally speaking, if I'm launching sometime before noon local time, then I will launch it the same day. If I'm wanting to launch ads and it's already, let's say 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, I just schedule it for midnight the next day. It's just what we find to work the best. I don't like to launch mid or late afternoon. It just tends to create a wonky start for the ads. Here is where you would mess with anything audience related. Again, most of the time we're literally just leaving this blank. We're just, if anything, changing location. We might change age range over here, right? So you do want to make sure minimum age range, typically for us, most of our clients and offers is going to be 25. Again, I really don't mess with too much when it comes to exclusions. You can, of course, if you want to, you can exclude existing customers. But Facebook's algorithm is generally pretty smart and will show ads to the right people. So again, I try to give Facebook as few chokeholds as possible. So again, we really don't mess with much here. You might want to change your location. If you do, this is where you would do it. If you did want to test some interest, for example, then this is where you would add in your quote unquote audience suggestions. Now, if I am going to test some specific audiences, I am going to click on the button that says further limit the reach of your ads, because Facebook is stupid and wants to fearmonger you into not doing the things you want to do. And again, this is where you would test maybe some custom audiences if you're running some retargeting traffic, maybe to your, again, to your engaged branding audiences. If you are testing some interest stacks, this is where you would test them. And then in the custom audiences is where you throw your lookalikes in as well. Sometimes we will add languages in, especially if we're targeting other countries outside the US, UK, or Canada, which we do for some clients. We do run traffic throughout different countries in Europe, and we will want to make sure that we want people that speak English, if that is the case specifically for the client. So again, that's where you edit that. Placements, 9 times out of 10, we're leaving this blank. However, if you did want to change anything, this is where you would do it. You come into placement controls, and this is where you'd mess with your stuff. So if we ever are testing manual placements, we will just usually exclude all this stuff in here. Then we'll go into feeds and usually just select Facebook and Instagram feed only, and then we'll remove all these other ones, again, if that's what we're trying to test. And then we'll adjust the stories and reels placements over here. And then you can leave all this other stuff. Just leave it, essentially. Just don't mess with it. Then you come over here into next, or you click next rather. Again, this is where you would name your, your creative angle, whatever it is. Let's just say it's angle 1, variation 2, or variation 3, or whatever. Again, I try and keep naming conventions as short as possible, enough for me to easily identify what the ad is by just looking at the actual name, but not too much to where I'm like overwhelmed and it's just like all this crap I have to read through, right? So you do want to name it enough to understand what angle and what creative it is. Here's where you'd select your Facebook page, and if you have an Instagram account hooked up, this is where you'd select it as well. And then, yeah, it's really simple. Again, I mean, if you're seeing this, you've probably already done this a million times. You just launch your ads, right? It's just really, it's not that complicated. Here's where you would, in this testing campaign, right, you'd be uploading your new creatives. 9 times out of 10, we're doing single image or video. And then sometimes we'll leave this on. Sometimes we'll test checking it off. Again, we've seen mixed results with both. We've seen it work well when you just leave it on with multi-advertiser ads. We've also seen it work well when you test turning it off. So again, you just kind of have to split test that for yourself. Boom, you enter in your URL for your low ticket funnel. And then we always do none over here. And then in your ad creative, of course, you're going to upload, whether it's an image or a video, you're going to upload that in there. And then it's going to also ask you to enter in your ad copy. Again, in a separate video, I talk about the actual creative structures that we're finding to work the best. But again, generally speaking, we're finding short form ads between 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes long, somewhere in that range. Video ads for us tend to work better than image. I'm not saying image ads don't work. They do work as well from time to time, but videos are working really well for us at the moment, and generally pretty short form copy, specifically for low ticket funnels, problem, solution, shifting belief, whatever, brief overview of what they're getting, why it's super valuable, why they need it, price, boom, right? Straight to the sales page. We're not trying to get fancy with it. We're just being clear, simple, and to the point. And then again, for your events and stuff here, it would just auto-populate and show you what, based off whatever pixel you selected in the first go-round. So again, this is where you set up your creatives. Again, none of this is really rocket science or complicated. Last thing here is you would have your, conversion, your attribution software parameter. So for us, we exclusively use Hyros. So we'd always have a Hyros parameter in here. And then when you're launching new creative tests, let's just say we publish this, right? All you would do is you come in here, you would duplicate original campaign, and then you come in here and you would just adjust the name of this depending on whatever variable you're actually changing inside this new ad set. And then you'd come in here and you'd adjust your actual creatives again to test your new ones. So that's your testing campaign. Really, really simple. Now, for your scaling campaign, all you would do is you would launch a campaign that looks almost identical to this. So you'd create another sales campaign, right? So let me just show you guys one more time. So you come over here, create campaign, right? We're going to get rid of this. No. What are you doing, Facebook? One sec. Okay, so again, you're going to come over here, create. You're going to select sales, right? So you're not going to do leads. You're not going to do traffic, none of that. Not for our conversion-based scale campaign. You're always going to select sales. You're going to hit continue. We're just going to call this ABO scaling, okay? And then same thing, we're not doing campaign budget. We're doing ad set budget. We're not sharing any of budget. We're getting rid of all that extra crap. Make sure you got these audiences populated. Come in here, you hit next. And then this is just going to be your broad targeting ad set, right? You got your one ad set in here, and you're just going to call it, it could just be broad USA winning creatives, and then you could also include the funnel name if you wanted to. Again, same thing, website. And you're going to go over here, maximize number of conversions, select your pixel and your conversion rate. It should definitely be the same one as what you use in your testing campaign. Leave all this stuff, same thing. Then your budget is going to be higher than normal, right? So this is, again, a scale campaign. So we're pushing more budget to the stuff we know works. So this might be 300, this might be 500, this might be 1,000, whatever it is. So you're going to just, again, enter in your budget there. One note as well when it comes to scaling, generally speaking, what I have found to work the best on a scale campaign is whatever you set as your budget, let's just say it's $500 a day. And so long as your performance is continuing to hold relative to what you know your KPIs and metrics need to look like, generally speaking, I like scaling that individual campaign's budget by roughly 15 to 20% every 2 to 3 days. That's what I find to work the best, right? So if, let's say, you launch at $500 a day, you let it run for 3 days, it's still in KPI, it's performing well, you would then scale it by, let's say, 20%, which would be an additional $100 a day. So now you bump that budget up on this ad set, which is the only ad set, again, that you're going to have inside this campaign. You're going to bump it up from 500 to 600. You're just going to change it right there. You're not launching anything new inside the scale campaign. You're just scaling it you're scaling the existing ad set inside the campaign. And again, you just keep doing that every few days, so long as performance continues to hold. Again, you leave all this stuff the same, whatever it is, whatever you did in the testing campaign, and whatever you know is proven to work the best. Again, you're going to leave this as. That's probably going to be the only thing, and maybe language will be the only thing you change. For scaling, again, I would highly recommend just keep automatic placements on. Don't mess with the placements too much. I've seen a direct correlation between tinkering too much with that stuff and more volatile results at scale. Another thing I want to mention on scalability and just generally scaling your ads on a low ticket funnel is that, again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. I'll talk about this in other videos, but really when it comes to scaling, obviously the media buying is important and the tracking is also incredibly important, making sure you're feeding back the best quality data to the pixel. But really at the end of the day, what's going to drive results is making sure that your funnel and your messaging and your ad creatives are all incredibly spot on and aligned with exactly where your market is at. I know in this video we're talking about media buying, but it is, I would be doing you all a disservice if I didn't mention the fact that the success of your media buying, right? Again, as you can see, none of it's super complicated or rocket science here. The success of your media buying really does come down to whatever the hell you're actually buying media with and for, right? Which is, again, going to be your funnel that you're sending people to, the ads you're putting in front of people, the messaging, the visuals, the offer, price point, etc. All those things are incredibly important, especially specifically for low ticket funnels. So just keep that in mind, that when you're scaling, you might not have a media buying issue. You might just have an issue if you're having trouble scaling. You might have an issue on all the other things that you're actually buying media for. And then again, inside your scale campaign, you're going to just, now this is specific here, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to your testing campaign, okay? And we're going to come over here. This is how we're ascending our ads via the post IDs into the scale campaign. So what you would do in your testing campaign is, let's say this was a live ad. What you would do is, once this ad has been live for a little while, you'll be able to come over here, you'll be able to click this, and you'll see a drop down. And in that drop down, you'll see something that says Facebook post with comments. So you would click that, it would open up a new tab where you would see the actual ad sort of looking as if it's a post inside your Facebook newsfeed. Then inside that URL, when you're on that separate tab, you'll see Facebook post, facebook.com/post/blah, blah, blah. That blah, blah, blah is going to be a long tail number. And what you're going to do is you're going to copy just that number, not the URL and all the other stuff, just that number specifically. And then you're going to come in here to your scale campaign, and this is where we're going to actually paste in that post ID, which pulls that exact ad. And the reason you want to do that, by the way, is because it's going to keep all the engagement that's on that existing ad, so that as you scale, you have all the social proof that comes with all the budget you've already spent on testing that ad, which in turn will 100% improve the performance of that creative. I've found a direct correlation between those two. So what you would do inside your ad creative over here is you would come over here, you would click use existing post, okay? And then over here, you would go enter post ID under ad creative, and this is where you would paste in that number. You would hit the check mark, and boom, your same ad from your testing campaign would populate, and now you've ascended your proven winners your proven creatives from your testing campaign into your scaling campaign. So that's exactly how it works. And then you just hit publish. Again, it's not that complicated. Now, let's come back over here. So that's really the ad account side of things. Now let's talk about optimizing and when to actually cut your ads. So it's a question I get all the time, right? Oh, how long should I let my ads run for, et cetera, et cetera. So for me personally, I like to let things run longer than most people usually will. The reason for that is because Facebook, generally speaking, like in normal good times, is volatile, right? So now, if you add in some sort of seasonality or a political event where they're running a lot of ads for, or something that's just sort of messing with the algorithm or whatever the case may be, also coupled with the fact that you might have just launched on a bad day, like, right, there's just so many different variables. I like to leave more time running for when I'm testing new ads or even launching new ads inside of a scale campaign for those exact reasons, to give a buffer of time to allow for those things to pass. Okay. So again, I typically let things run longer than most. A really solid general rule of thumb when it comes to optimizing and cutting ads for a low ticket funnel specifically, because it's different than if you're running ads for a call funnel, is I generally look for a new ad, especially in a testing campaign. I look for it to be I'll let it run 3 times the target CPA, right? So let's say I have a $50 low ticket product on the front end, and my target CPA is, let's say, $100, right? Like I want to get a purchase for $100 because I know my AOV is, let's say, $80 with all the order bumps and the upsells. So that's a spread I'm okay with spending on or tolerating or whatever. If you know that's your target CPA, then I'll typically let that new ad run about 3x that. So I'll let it run and spend about $300, maybe even a little bit more, maybe run for an extra day and spend $400 if it's at $100 a day. I'll let it run till that point and then make the call and determine whether or not it's in KPI or not, right? Is it close to my target CPA of $100? If it's, say, at 120, 125, I'll typically still let something like that run a little bit longer because it might start creeping back further down into KPI. So it's really just this sort of balancing act, but a really solid general rule of thumb for a low ticket funnel when it comes to optimizing and cutting is, again, let it run at least 3x target CPA in spend, not necessarily days, right? So in spend and budget, and then start to make a decision on whether or not you're going to let it run a little bit longer or if you're just going to cut it then and there. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this was helpful. That is as high level overview as I can give you guys here in this one specific video on how to structure your ad accounts and your media buying for scaling your low ticket funnel to $5,000 a day. I hope you found this helpful. Again, I'm going to leave links in the description to some of these other videos that I think will also help you round out your understanding of how to really make a low ticket funnel work for your info and coaching business. Again, as always, in the description, you'll also find links to the $1 Million a Month KPI dashboard to help you get better visibility on how to actually scale your marketing and client acquisition based on numbers. So you're no longer guessing and you're really doing it based off grounded data and metrics. And lastly, if you ever want an extra set of eyes on your marketing, and if you want to chat about having myself and my team help you implement and execute our conversion ecosystem into your high ticket info and coaching business, please feel free to book a call down below. And we are happy to do a full audit of your current marketing and sales and client acquisition systems and see where the opportunities lie and how you can start to plug those and improve your performance. So with that said, see you guys in the next video. Bye.